So we're here to talk about the big college football news of the day, of the last 12 hours, really. And we'll start with this. This is a piece on TexasFootball.com written by Mike Craven. Quote, Nick Saban didn't hold back from sharing his opinion of Texas A&M's top-rated 2022 recruiting class to a room full of local business leaders during an event in Birmingham on Wednesday night. How many college football stories start with, like, coach was talking at an event in front of boosters? Alumni, yeah.
That's what happens this time of year. They all go do their, like tent revivals, where they go to
the coaches' caravans are huge.
Right. Like here, like Sark was in Houston yesterday, and he kind of like said, like, I'm all in on Arch Manning. He didn't mention him by name, but like they asked him about like quarterback recruiting. He's like, I've offered one quarterback, and that's the quarterback I'm offering, So they kind of go around, and this is to talk to the boosters that maybe don't live in the city where you play football. It's not a coincidence that Saban was talking about Texas A&M paying players to a group of people who would be responsible for playing Alabama's players, right?
Yeah.
Like this wasn't. I don't believe Nick Saban was really trying to diss Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M as much as Jimbo took it. I think Nick Saban was saying, look, we go to the national championship game every year. They went 8-4.
And you can't fork up the money?
Yeah, they just signed 8 5-stars. Georgia and us combined signed 8 this year. Like, they paid those guys to come here. If we want to keep up with that, which is a funny thing to say, right?
Sure.
If we, Nick Saban and Alabama, will want to keep up with the big, bad Texas A&M, you guys are going to have to start doing what they're doing. And it's laughable. You know how politicians and lawyers can say untruths but not lies? Right?
Yes.
They're really good at saying stuff that isn't true, but they can go, well, I'm not lying. Both of those did that over the last 12 hours, right? Like, Nick Saban is paying players, maybe not like handing it out of his pocket to people, right? But Alabama is paying players. And Jimbo Fisher admitted today in his press conference he has no idea what his collective is doing.
Yeah.
They asked him, what do you know about him? I don't know. Right? So he's like, we didn't pay players. I also don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? So it's just a very interesting thing. It's just cool, I think. I mean, as a media person, right? Like, these guys talk about each other behind closed doors like this. As a media guy, I've heard them talk about each other like that, and so for them to finally get up there and be like, nope, we're just talking about it, it's great for college football in the month of May.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bruce Feldman had a tweet that he mentioned, I have it right here. Spoke to a former SEC assistant on the Jimbo Saban blow-up, and it just means more land. The quote is, there has always been an honor amongst thieves mantra in the league, and those two just called each other's wives fat to a global audience.
So
more or less, like, yes, I agree with what Craven's saying. Like, it's not even – I've loved – like, and this is a thing with, like – I think it's been a thing this whole offseason with Nick Saban, where it's been like he's just been – I don't know if it was just losing the title game and like seeing A&M get he's been on like a heater this whole
He's also old at this point.
Well,
like
sure.
He's 70 and probably just doesn't give a crap anymore, if you're going to be honest.
He's going to leave on his own terms.
Yeah,
right? So I think the thing for me I've loved everything I've heard from Nick Saban this offseason because it's more or less been like he's talked about the transfer portal, he's talked about NIL, and every single thing he said, everybody's like thinks he's complaining about these things. He's not, right? I think he's very much saying, is this how it's going to go? Because we'll really throw our like. I think he's more or less with the Jimbo thing. He more or less said, "Yeah, you kind of know how we've done business at Alabama, right?" But I think he's also saying, "Hey, 70 to 80% of how we're recruiting these guys is just the fact that we've won so much, right? We got to stay up with the rest of the country, so they're obviously getting deals. They're obviously doing that, but also they know that they're Bama and they're gonna get some guys to an extent. And so I think this is him saying." Hey, guys, we're really not in this race right now. Is this really how the game's going to go? Because let's not forget, Alabama has so much sway. They shut down UAB.
Yeah.
Like, just for the fact that they were winning a couple games that the Board of Regents didn't feel like they should have been winning, they shut them down and be like, ooh, we can't have that, right? And so when it came to the transfer portal, people thought he was complaining about the transfer portal. No, he's just not involved in the transfer portal yet. Yeah. Like, people are leaving Bama. He's not going to get guys. And so I can imagine, like, this whole offseason has been like a Jimbo or a Saban basically saying, we can really get in this game if this is how the game's going. And I think when Jimbo's a very prideful guy. He was like, oh, you're saying we're not a good program? Like, of course he's going to take it that way and, like, try to make it about and rightfully so. I think he should. If he says his name, right? If he says A&M, like he has a right to say that.
That to me is the real point, and I want to read the quote.
Yeah.
Quote: We were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team.
Yes.
Made a deal for name, image, and likeness. We didn't buy one player. All right. But I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it. It's tough, end quote.
Yeah.
The mistake,
Right.
which the content is exceptional, so I don't view it as a mistake.
Right.
The mistake that Saban made was name-checking A&M.
Mm-hmm.
If he had said, we finished second in recruiting, and we, a lot of the other teams in the top 5, a lot of the other teams in the top 10, they're paying players.
Yep.
They're paying players. We don't do that.
Yeah.
If he had done that, you guys are not sitting at this table here.
I think I think he's smart enough to know that.
Sure,
like he
sure,
wanted
yeah.
to name drop A&M. He wanted to name drop Jackson State. Like he's a guy. He's an Aflac commercial guy, right? Like Nick Saban. He was on Blindside, right? Like,
Say the line, Bart.
We try to act like Nick Saban is this like old school. Like he'll do whatever. Like he's
Yeah.
a salesman. He knows what's happening. He knows what time it is. And I just thought Jimbo. You talk to Jimbo and you know that there's bad blood there.
Yes.
Right? Like you just know that there's something behind the scenes there that's happening.
What did he say? He's like, there's a reason why I haven't gone back to work for him.
Right.
Right. He just like this.
You mean it's not the $9 million?
I know, right? Well, first of all, I was like, well, you haven't gone back to work because you haven't needed to. But
Yeah.
he's a good head coach. But
I think that was a shot at Lane.
Ooh,
I
that's
like
That's
that.
an excellent
Interesting.
point.
That's
You know,
another
like
one,
I
'cause
didn't come
because by-
grovel back to the guy who bullies me and stuff like that.
That's a
Like
good
this other
point.
guy who keeps taking Twitter shots that
That's a
can't
good point.
compete with either one of us, right?
By the way,
Like,
speaking of
Jimbo,
Lane, he also subtweeted like both
right.
of them. last
I
week.
think Jimbo looks at Lane like a little brother.
Yeah.
You know,
That
and
wouldn't
like,
shock me.
And like Saban's like his old mentor or boss that he wants
Right.
to outgrow. And
Right.
Jimbo's point of contention is he's always been a recruiter. When he was with Nick Saban, he was the ace recruiter. When he was at Florida State, ace recruiter. His point is, I've always done this really well. And now I'm doing it at the same level that you're doing it at, Nick, and you're getting your underwear in a bunch, right? Like, that's just what this is. I think Nick Saban's mad he lost twice. He lost to A&M in the season. He lost to A&M on the recruiting trail, and he's not a guy who's used to losing to former assistants. Like,
Yes.
until Kirby Smart beat him,
He
he had
lost.
not lost to a former assistant in his career.
Yeah.
And so I think this is new territory for Nick. I think he sees it as a
I guess I think
threat.
it was
No,
actually
Jimbo
Jim-
was first.
Jimbo was first.
Jimbo
Jimbo's
was
first, but
and
then yes, what
Kirby.
happened
So
twice.
last year, I think it's starting to crumble a little
Sure,
bit,
sure.
right? Like it's not as easy to be top dog for Nick Saban anymore. And Jimbo pointed that out perfectly. Like he was like, this is the second time I've had to deal with this from grown men who are pouting over not getting their way. And Nick Saban's not a guy who likes to lose. Like we've all heard the basketball stories, right? Like how bad
Oh,
he
yes.
is, like
Yeah,
playing with assistant coaches and basketball and stuff. I think he's just one of those super competitive guys who's been in a bubble for so long as the greatest that he just doesn't have a connection with this stuff anymore. He can say whatever he wants, and good on Jimbo for being like, nope, we're doing a press conference at 10 a.m. today, and we're talking about the narcissist.
So-
Like,
so-
that's beautiful.
Another thing real fast, going back to your point about the businessman tactic of knowing what he was doing when he said that, I think the other thing too is if you've been around an athletic department long enough, you realize that the one thing that's absolutely going to drive that donor money is the fact of calling out your rivals. Like,
Yeah.
if you're asking for your fan base
Human
to
enemy.
provide this thing, the number one thing you're going to do is you're going to start a rivalry, because if you don't mention A&M and you just say top 5, then they're like, okay, but you light that fire underneath them, watch the money start flowing in.
I was gonna say it would not shock me. Actually, it would stun me if this is the opposite. The A&M booster and the Alabama booster know each other, right? They hang around the same circle.
They go to they golf together.
They golf together, right? They know very much. It would shock me if like A&M's boosters weren't connected with Bama boosters, Georgia boosters, whatever. If they didn't all know each other in some capacity. And so yeah, if you're on the course, you want to be able to say like, the boosters probably have heard from A&M boosters being like, man, can you believe we see how we pulled that? 8 wins. Imagine when we get, imagine when we start winning and like they're probably tired, but like, what? Like what? Yeah, we can out.
Yeah.
And people
outspend
with
these
that
guys.
level of money like to talk about the number that they donated to these athletic departments.
Well-
Like those college golf tournaments, when it comes to donor stuff, are ridiculous.
Your point's well taken, because and I'll draw a parallel. If you've ever gotten an email or a text message from a political campaign who is asking you for money,
Yeah.
it is never about how great their candidate is.
Right.
It is about, we've got to stop our opponent because they're going to ruin everything.
Here's the boogeyman.
Yes, exactly
Yeah.
right. You are fundraising fundraising against the boogeyman. So I want to make sure
It's
we're
just funny that the boogeyman is talking about a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
like Nick
no,
Saban is the
no, that's
boogeyman.
the best
It's like
part.
Candy.
That's
It's
the
like
best.
Candyman going Candyman. You know what I mean? Like it's just
That's
wild.
the best part. Again, it's all just warning shots. He's just firing across the bow to be like, look, we'll get involved in this game if this is how the game is going to go. This is a warning to all of y'all. Like,
Yeah.
I will
it's the
say this
best.
though. I
love
think
it.
the biggest winner right here today is Texas A&M.
Oh, 100%.
Like I think Jimbo Fisher walked off that stage and immediately recruits for like,
He's like,
man, this is beautiful. Like we're getting paid and you're going to defend it. Like this.
Yeah.
I was about
like,
to say, he's calling Ruben Owens being like, hey, Nick Saban's afraid of us.
Right.
He's calling
Yeah.
a five-star
Well, and you know the
being
A&M fan
he made
base.
him
If he's
relevant.
gonna stand up for A&M, they're
Oh,
God.
they're gonna yeehaw
Give him
and
another
whoop
10-year contract.
and yeah, keep going. Like
Give him a
You mean
guarantee
yeehaw?
another
You mean
extension.
yeehaw in a very respectful way.
Because
yeah.
also as a,
Sure.
aside from being a WWE fan, I'm a rap fan.
Yeah.
Right. And like one of the things in a rap battle is you don't mention people below you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you don't like take shots at people way below. The fact that Nick Saban is talking about Jimbo Fisher in this way is good for Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
And the fact that he can get up there at 10 a.m. and control his message and get
about to say, everybody's
softballs thrown
so-
at him as questions and
Yeah.
stuff like that by local media, he gets to control the message and be like, look. The guy who's been running this thing is scared to death of what we're doing in College Station. We're not stopping. We're staying on his neck. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be okay. Like, we're going to be a program. He said all that today. A&M fans are running to the bank account, right?
Uh-huh.
Right,
Recruits are running to their phone. Like, Jimbo Fisher today is sitting back with a cigar going, this couldn't have worked out any more perfect.
So I want to catch people up on what actually happened with Jimbo Fisher, just in case you're joining us. So so that happened last night. That report came out about Nick Saban. This morning, A&M called a 10 a.m. press conference.
Got the email at 9:22.
To announce to announce that Peyton Allfield is coming back to be their director of art. No, congrats, Peyton. Anyway, he basically went on about a 20-minute. It wasn't a rant because there were questions in there, questions ostensibly in there, but essentially here are the money quotes. Quote, some people think they're God, Fisher said of Saban. Go dig in how God did his deal. You might find out about a guy, a lot of things you don't want to know. We build him into the czar of college football. Go dig into his past. He called the allegations despicable. He used that word a lot.
Yeah.
I just know what we did was nothing wrong. Fisher said nothing was promised, nothing was a deal. We didn't buy any players. This is you mentioned this. This is the second time I've had to address this from grown men who don't get their way and pout and throw a fit. Just go ask people who've worked for Saban. They know exactly what he's about. When people show you who they are, believe them.
One other word that he called Nick Saban, he called him a narcissist.
A narcissist.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Like,
Use the word.
yes, use the word narcissist. So, like, I do love that it was, like, subtweets at Jimbo, obviously shots at A&M directly, and then Jimbo's just like, mask off. I'm just going right at Saban. Like, just like, fully,
So-
there's no, I'm not saying Alabama. I'm
No.
not saying the boosters. I'm saying Nick Saban. Like, straight up.
And they are, that is, I think, what's important to note here is he is, once again, he's telling the truth.
yeah.
I just know we did nothing wrong. Nothing was promised. Nothing was a deal, and we didn't buy any players.
what I was like.
I believe him when he says that.
Yeah, I believe that Jimbo Fisher never did any of those things.
Absolutely true.
Yes.
And to that point, I'll go a little further. I believe that Texas A&M
Sure,
and
right.
official channels
Yes.
within Texas A&M did not do that.
100%.
Right.
Did someone else? Who's to say?
Right.
But that's what you're talking about the idea of you can say what you need to say and be truthful, and that's one of the things that frustrates me. Not to get too far into this, because I don't want to start my own beef. The pushback on these questions at these press conferences, they've just got to be stronger, because it's just like basically they're letting him go up there and cut a diss track, and there's really no pushback from the reporters, and it's like, why don't you tell me how the NIL collective works? I've always wondered, because you remember who was it that said that they had like a $30 million slush fund or something when he was talking about the internet forum and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah, I remember. It came out after signing day.
Yeah,
right?
after signing day,
that
his press
rumor or whatever,
conference,
yeah.
it was like, oh, they had a $30 million collective or whatever
Right.
that paid the players and stuff like that, and he just went out there and he had something like this today where he flat out denies that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah.
Where was the question of, okay, how much is your NIL collective?
Right.
Because we know there is one.
Right.
Like
Everybody has
Texas has one.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech has one.
Right.
You know
It's
what I mean?
legal.
It's legal. There's
Like,
nothing wrong.
You don't
didn't
need
do
to
anything
hide
wrong.
something that's legal.
And that's what I think is so interesting is he could come out and cop to all of this and say, yeah, we did do this.
Right.
We did. But he doesn't, because he's he's polishing his own message to reflect the best it is on himself and on A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get caught in some maybe down the road allegations and problems if the NCAA comes back and says like certain things are legal, certain things aren't legal.
Right.
What did A&M do? And you know Nick Saban's laying that groundwork. Like if you're gonna look at programs, look at A&M, look at Miami, right? Like I think that's kind of the two like boogeymen of this like last offseason for some of these other coaches. But to me, it's just sour grapes, right? Like Nick Saban's finally getting beat at Nick Saban's game, and he doesn't know how to handle that, and he. In a room with what he thought was like-minded individuals, he made a statement that I don't think he thought was going to get out this big. And the reason I think that is because Nick Saban called Jimbo Fisher last night.
Yeah.
And Jimbo was like, didn't answer it, not going to, we're done. Right? Like that's amazing
All right.
to me.
Okay.
Right? Like,
Okay.
this is
Here's my
unbelievable
question.
what's happening.
Here's my question though. Do you believe that?
Oh, yeah. They're going to see each other at the SEC meetings in a couple weeks, right? And they asked Jimbo about that too. Like, is that going to be awkward? And Jimbo was like, I don't run from confrontation, right? Like, I was told, like, he suggested that Nick Saban should have been slapped as a child.
Yeah, I was about to say somebody hadn't slapped him or something like that.
Yeah, he was
Usually
like, when
get
I was a
slapped
kid
soft
and
enough.
I lied, I got slapped in the face. Maybe somebody should have slapped Nick Saban. What?
Yeah.
What?
By the way,
can
this
you
is
imagine like DKR saying that about Paul Bryant? You know what I mean?
and
Like,
also-
this is amazing.
I now have that
emphasize-
visual. And
I also
it's
need to emphasize, like, no offense to him, Jimbo Fisher, not the most bright, like the most lively personality, right? He's a fast talker, right? He's kind of you can see what makes him a good coach. What makes him kind of the builder that he is. Not exactly the guy you're being, you'll chat in the elevator with, right? For him to say that, like, you got that out of him? Are you kidding me? Like, that's awesome. Like, that,
You really pushed a button if you got him to say
Exactly.
that.
So if you got him to emote that much and to really emote, I say emote is the Jimbo Fisher of emote, where he's talking real fast, very sternly, but like very much like he's pissed off,
Yeah.
right? If you got that out of him, you got, like she said, you got something out. You really pressed a button.
But Jimbo won two arguments today. He won the one against Nick Saban and the one against Otter, because there's like no way that you can like transcribe Jimbo. You know what I mean? Like
It's impossible.
He is like
It
the
is
fast.
impossible.
It almost felt like he was talking slower today because he was mad.
Right.
He was
I
trying to
about
make a
say, he's like
point. Yeah, you're talking
really
stern.
trying
like a
to-
little more measured.
That's
Yeah.
what his kids have heard. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's
His
the
son- his
Jimbo
son has
Fisher
heard
You
that.
know, Dad is mad
Yeah, right.
when he takes his time to talk.
Here's the only reason. The only reason why I wonder if he wouldn't answer the phone call or he didn't answer a phone call or whatever. The only reason is there is certainly an element to this, and you've brought it up about how he's going out there and he's cutting a diss track and how you think it's working for A&M. This is a positive for A&M. He's not dumb. He knows that. And if go back to wrestling, if you're the heel, you just do heelish things. Or if you're the babyface, you do babyface things. This is an opportunity. I think he looked around and he goes, all right, I can paint him as the heel and I can be the babyface. So even if Nick Saban did call last night, and there's about a 2% chance that Nick Saban called and said, hey, you know what? I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry, man. Stuff like that. And Fisher said, all right, hey, I appreciate that. But I am going to let you know I'm calling a 10 a.m. press conference and I am going to cut a promo on you.
Right.
And I'm going to walk out with the belt.
But that move in this scenario only works once. If he
Yes.
does not go back if he goes and backs it up, this is going to go down as like a legendary thing that a coach has ever done. But if he doesn't go and back this up on the field, I feel like it's a move that you can't pull again.
Well, you're
Maybe-
right. Yeah, you get to do this once because you only get one shot at the king, right? He opened himself up, and you took a shot at him.
yeah, it's David and Goliath.
and
Like-
now, like, what will be very interesting is to see if this opens up the floodgates of people willing to criticize Nick Saban, because people have been pretty mum on that.
It's already started on Twitter with
Yeah.
former players and stuff being like, "Oh, y'all don't pay people? Like what? Like,
Yeah.
like y'all used to leave boxes outside of my door
Yeah.
and stuff
Right.
with money or whatever." Leon O'Neal was like, "We would go to train. They'd already be in Hellcats, and I'm driving around in my Honda, you know, whatever." Like there was another player on there that was like, "I was in training, NFL training, and there would be guys that were like, I was getting paid more in Alabama than I do on this practice squad
Yeah.
in the NFL and stuff." So again, it's just one of those things where these coaches can say this stuff that is true technically. Nick Saban probably does not take out his wallet and go, "Here, Will Anderson, here's $1,000." But he knows somebody who does, or at least like plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And this stuff's always been happening, right? Like one of my favorite stories, like as a kid, I got to hang out at the UT program all the time because of my grandfather. We're at a Holiday Bowl in like 1997. Brandon Foster, a defensive back, walks up to Mac Brown, Cleve Bryant, and my grandfather, and he goes, "Coach, I did the air," because back in those days, to get players money, you would figure out how much it cost them to get to a bowl game. you would give them that money, and then they were allowed to make their own travel arrangements, right? So you would adjust it. You'd be like, it's going to cost them $3,000 to get to Pasadena. Here's $3,000. Then you do it for $1,000. You get to keep the $2,000, right? Brandon Foster's a redshirt freshman, so he walks up and he goes, "Hey, coach, I have some extra money from travel. Where do I send that to?" And Mac Brown just walked off. Just walked off, right? And Cleve Bryant puts his arm around Brandon Foster, and they walk off. And I'm 12, and I look at my grandfather, and I'm like, what is that about? And he goes, "Let me teach you about plausible deniability." And that's what all of these coaches are, right? Like, Jimbo isn't paying people. Nick Saban isn't paying people, so they're technically true. But we all know what's happening here.
Bagmen exist.
And it's great to watch this go from black market to free market.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you a tell on these guys and their insecurities. We are around coaches all the time. They're some of the most insecure people that you can meet because it's such a competitive, high risk, high like testosterone environment. I think Jimbo knows that he's winning this fight and is also pissed. I think both of those things can be true. And he's a guy who feels like he's insulted. Like, Kirby can do this and I can't. Nick can do this and I can't. Ryan Day can do this at Ohio State and I can't. Like, why is it that when I get the 8 5-stars, it's all of a sudden like, what is happening here? Yeah. I think his pride is legitimately mad, and that was a dude up there who, while we joke about it and go like, "Oh, WWE, this is all fake" and stuff like that, I think he was legitimately mad and hurt, and his like pride as a coach has been kind of put out there by guys like Lane Kiffin and stuff, who it's like, what have you done?
Yeah.
You know, and I think Jimbo's sitting there in his office going like, dude, this is what it is.
It was a big, it's still real to me, damn it moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was like a long fuse that finally lit fire.
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, is it does come back to, ego's the wrong word, but it's pride. You know what I mean? It's pride. And Saban took a shot at his pride, and he's saying, you are only getting these recruits because you have bagmen.
Right.
When that's not true. Do the bagmen help? Yeah, probably.
Right.
But
help everywhere.
But the bagmen help at USC, and the bagmen help at Oregon, the bagmen help at Illinois.
The bagmen have helped Nick Saban every stop he's ever made.
That's exactly right. And so for me, and Issue kind of brought up that point, that it's a lot of the pride, it's a lot of the ego that
I think
brought this on.
When Pickle mentioned this would only work once, I think that says I agree with that, mainly because of Jimbo's personality, right? Because of the fact that he got this if he was, let's say this was Lane Kiffin, right? That Nick Saban was taking a shot at, right? He was like, "Oh, these transfers, right?" Which probably happening at Ole Miss. He's getting like the best transfers in the country, like consistently. If he said like, "Oh, look, Ole Miss is getting this 5-star quarterback, 5-star running back, Zach Evans, whatever. They're paying players, blah blah blah." If he would have named Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin would have said some things, that's par for the course for Lane Kiffin, right? It's like no one's gonna be like, "Oh man, Ole Miss better beat Bama this week." It's like, no, it's gonna be a competitive game. He'll score 30, probably lose, probably give up 50 or whatever, and just move on because Lane's Lane, and he takes pot shots at everybody.
He would have just posted a GIF.
I was about to say, like literally, like I said last night, he just posted a GIF, like quote tweeting. I forgot what it was. I think it was like, I forgot exactly what it was, like fishing or something. It was like some type of subliminal GIF. But he'll just, it's par for the course for Lane. He's like, oh, it's just one thrown in the bag. The fact that Jimbo went off on this, right?
Yeah, it's like the boy who cries wolf. Like he's never done it before.
It's like, oh my God, something's probably up now. And so now it's probably going to be like, you can't go out and lose 35-10.
No.
Right? To Bama now, right? Now, granted, Bama's going to be more, Nick Saban's going to probably want to do that, but Jimbo has to show that, like, hey, look, we're not going to get our butt. We're here, right? Like Craven was saying, we're here. We are Ohio State. We are Georgia. We're up here right now. And now he has to come out and back that up because he came out and made these kind of statements.
And that's an interesting point because you take a look at A&M 2022.
Yeah.
I don't know how the magazine will come out soon. You can see our predictions there. Is it fair to say that from the Republican football crew here that you don't think 2022 is the year for A&M to make the national title run? Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think Connor Weigman's ready to be like that star quarterback yet, and until they have that guy, you just can't win in the SEC now. You know, like that ran into Nick Saban, right? Like he started to realize, like, I got to spread this out and get 5-star quarterbacks in this deal. Like Greg McElroy's not winning this thing anymore. I don't know if A&M is ready yet. 2023 though. I think they got a real shot to be the best team in the nation.
Well, and that's what's so interesting to me is that this is all setting up for Alabama versus A&M in October 9th, I think it is. October 9th.
8th or 9th, whatever that's.
It's in Bama this year, right?
In Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Alabama, spoiler alert, is going to be very good.
Yep.
A&M is probably going to be a year away.
Yeah, this would be a lot more exciting if it was going to be in Kyle Field.
But this is what makes this. You're absolutely right. Maybe we can move that game.
Oh, can you say that one more time?
What?
You're absolutely right.
Did I say that? I'm sorry. I have not had any coffee today. This is water. So
He didn't know there was a show today.
I'm sorry. We're just riffing here. Yeah, exactly. Remember, we planned the show 10 minutes in advance. There's a lot of pressure, I think, now on A&M to go out there and perform in 2022. Now, if you go out there and you lose a competitive game, if you lose 31-21, something like that,
you'll deal.
I think you're good.
Yeah.
What you can't do is you can't go out there and get beat 56-10.
You can't have what was it last year? I think not 21, 20.
20.
I think it was they got the doors kicked in, right? You can't do that.
They won last year.
Yeah, no,
A&M won last year.
They won 20.
I will say this: like, is it a Neeson rating when you take if you did that for like college fan bases for their head coach right now? I think Jimbo Fisher rates the highest of it. Like, I think today he became an Aggie.
Yeah.
Right.
Like today he was like this was his day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I'm going to stick up for this university. I will take the heat, put it on me. Like, you're not bashing 17-year-olds. You're not saying A&M's name without me responding. And I know that fan base pretty well, and they love that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's us against everybody at A&M, right? And he's one of us now, and that's going to be a huge deal with him. I think he has a lifetime contract. If he didn't have it before, I think he's like Mr. Aggie now. You know, like, they're going to build a statue outside for Jimbo because he stood up to the big bad wolf. And A&M's always wanted that. They've always had that little brother syndrome with Texas, and they're getting out of that shadow. And today's another piece of proof that Texas A&M doesn't need Texas. And that's a big step within itself. I would love to be a fly on the wall at Steve Sarkisian's office.
Oh yeah,
right? Because
he's like, why nobody taking shots at me?
Where can I get some of that?
I agree. Like, you're Texas, and you've fallen so far off the radar.
You're not registering.
Like, nobody even's talking about it. Nobody even cares what's happening at Austin.
You just snagged Quinn Ewers, who's like, was hyped up just a year ago as the best quarterback since Vince Young, and no one cares. Like,
Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff winner, may come to Texas. Nobody's talking about that.
No one,
right?
Like, no one. It's like, what? Who cares? What?
The most talked about football program in the nation today.
You're coming to the conference in 2 years.
No, and he's a former Saban assistant.
That's what I'm saying.
But here's the thing: is you've talked with Steve Sarkisian in person. I have not.
Yeah.
He strikes me as the guy that he's going to get asked about it by Austin media and be like, "What do you make of that?" And he's going to offer a very
PC. He's going to be politically correct with it.
Nothing burger statement. Be like, the coaching fraternity is too strong for us to be taking pot shots. Something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like.
It'll be the J.
Chaos.
And it's like, and to me, does that prove? I don't want to get too far into it, but does that prove that he's not ready for the SEC? Because you got to be willing to get in the mud. You know why Ed Orgeron ruled at LSU? Yeah. Because he was willing to roll around in the mud.
Lived in it.
He lived in it. Born in it.
Born in the mud.
Literally and figuratively, possibly. Like, not 100% sure, but
I do think if I'm a Texas booster right now, I'm going, ooh, man, we're stepping into something that I'm not sure that we're quite ready for. And my whole life, I've heard how much more money Texas has than everybody else. We're about to find out if that's true. Because if you want to play this game with Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Oklahoma.
Yeah, show your cards at this point.
You better
you got to go all in.
Again, I got to reemphasize. Alabama shut down another FBS program because they were mad they were winning like 6 games. Like, this is a lot, right? This is literally like Texas being like, "Hey, UTSA, no, that doesn't exist anymore."
Yeah, exactly right. It's funny because you mentioned that, like, the 2 programs you always hear are like the richest, like as far as like money they're willing to put into athletics. Because Stanford's got a lot of money, but that's different.
Sure. Are
USC and Texas. What's USC done lately? All right, USC making moves. They're going out there. They're making
imported Oklahoma.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And they're doing with people that can't stand the University of Texas any more than anyone else at that point.
I mean, there's a shift in what college football is looking like, and A&M is pretty clearly ready to play that game.
Money's in the center of the table.
Yeah. Let's go.
Cards are all in. They're all in. Chips are all in.
Shirts off, they're down. Shoes on, like, we're ready to go. like, let's do this thing.
Boots on, if you will.
That's why I think they love Jimbo so much today. Like, it's like, he's one of us.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would have said. That's what I was saying on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I've been calling Saban a narcissist.
It really is. It was like today was a Facebook post from Nick Saban or from Jimbo Fisher, like a
was a forum.
really well delivered Facebook
That was
post.
a forum rant. It's
Yes,
like,
it was.
It's
It-
like, he thinks he's God. Blah, blah, blah,
Text
blah.
Ags 4257.
Right?
like
I
wrote
wrote
that
that.
speech.
I
Like,
wrote that last year.
Exactly
I'm
right.
telling you, it's
And-
say the line, Bart, and they all
really
went.
is.
"Dah."
know your audience.
Exactly right.
Know your audience. And
100%.
to speak back to Sark's thing, he also needs to know his audience, and I think the PC answer is probably the best one to give in Austin.
Yeah, in Austin, yes.
Yeah, for that fan base, they don't want to get in this right now.
Right,
They got
right.
another year to do this,
Wait
and they
till
host
later.
Alabama week 2.
Yeah, I was about to
Steve's
say.
not
Yeah.
trying to do anything.
Nope.
Like, he's going to get up there and be like, "Yeah, I mean,
Speaking of
Nick
teams that are a
Saban's
year
one of my
away.
favorite people in the like."
Yeah, speaking of teams that are a year away, he doesn't want to shatter that team's confidence now.
No, right. No.
And what's interesting, so one of my if you're an A&M fan today,
Yeah.
and week 2 happens and it's Texas versus Alabama, who are you rooting for?
Ooh, that's a great question.
No, you're absolutely okay. My opinion, you're rooting for Alabama because you don't want Texas to get the gloat in week 2. You want to be able to get the gloat in
Yeah.
week whatever
well,
they play
because
in.
because
Yes.
then here's the thing: if Texas
Texas
wins,
ruins it?
if Texas wins, and
then
then
you
you
lose.
go to Tuscaloosa and lose,
Then yeah, the
that is as good as beating A&M head to head.
I was
Right.
about to say that's almost 10 years ago run back.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I would say
even
they
if you
hope
go
to-
and beat them, the
Yeah.
stock in that game just plummets at that point.
I hope I'm if I'm an A&M, I'm hoping they pummel Texas.
Yes.
Yes.
And then that way you can either be competitive or upset again or upset Bama again. Like then or if you get pummeled too, we both got it's fine. Bama's on a different level, right? You can't have them.
They're going to
play
look at that as a
close.
win over Alabama and a win over Texas at that point. And you want to talk about what gets the A&M fan base going? That those two are the thing.
Right, exactly right. You would be able to get 2 for 1.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. This is a monumental day.
Oh, I love it.
It's
This
so
is-
fun.
This
I'm
is
telling you, my cheeks they hurt. Like
This
right
is-
here.
Too much
these
smiling.
Right
these but here's what I worry. Here's my worry. I worry that this is it though.
I was going to say,
Deion's
what happens
talking
from
later this
here?
afternoon.
Deion's talking.
Deion's talking later this afternoon because Saban didn't just throw Alabama under the bus.
Oh,
He-
yeah,
he
no.
talked about Jackson State giving $1 million to a player, and Deion's already like responded
I was
on
about to say, he
social
responded,
media
like,
and
last
stuff.
night on
and
Twitter.
he's going to talk later this afternoon, and that's going to be like the next level of this thing because if
me
nobody's
see.
out talking Deion.
That
No,
is 100%
absolutely
true.
not.
Jimbo Fisher is a good talker. He ain't Deion.
Deion's making $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is mostly charity
Yeah.
for Deion. You know, like he doesn't care what he's about to say some stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm trying to find Deion's tweet exactly.
Like Deion's gonna come out with like like Chris Jericho and his list, you know? Like he's gonna come out and just like one of those like Shrek roll things. It's like 1984.
I got some
Saban-
things to say.
Say.
Like Nick Saban paid me. You know what I mean?
So here's Coach Prime on Twitter. You best believe I will address the lie that Coach Saban told tomorrow. This is last night. I was, I like the way he phrases. I was awakened by my son, Shadur Sanders, that sent me the article stating that we paid Travis Hunter $1 million to play at Jackson State. We as a people don't have to pay our people to play for our people.
Hey, Dad.
Man, I was about to, I can just imagine like Shadur
Dad.
Sanders being like, "Hey, Dad,
Go, go off, Dad.
Remember when you were a
Just
kid
slumped
and you
over
like
in the-
didn't feel very well,
Right.
And you had to like go wake up your parents, but you were like,
Dad.
Yeah.
Dad, Nick Saban saying you paid Travis Hunter."
With the quiver at the end.
Or it's like, or even better is like Deion's in this giant like gold mansion and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and Shador walks up and goes, "Papa, I have a dispatch from the internet.
Well, I mean,
Like,
You'll never believe what that rapscallion
No.
in Tuscaloosa said."
He opens
No,
one of
okay,
those
if he's-
metal thing, you know, and like, the cell phone sitting there,
It's in
you
the
know.
phone.
Yeah.
It's gold glowing.
Yeah.
no,
Instead
if
of
he's
one message.
if he's anything like Deion, he woke up and was like, "Oh, Dad's about to go off
Hey, Dad.
today."
Yo, Dad.
Dang.
Well, like, and the other thing about that is, again, it's the truth without saying it's not
Yeah.
lying without saying the full truth.
Yeah.
Because he says that we paid Travis Hunter. It's like, no, the rumor was that Barstool paid Travis Hunter.
Yes.
Like,
Right. That ain't we.
I was
Yeah.
about to say, that's not we. That's not Jackson State. Which, again,
Portnoy is not an ally. It is not we.
Right, exactly. That is not we. So, it goes back to the whole, like, you're not saying the whole truth, but you're not lying.
Yes. What a day.
So, so much.
What a day.
So much fun.
This is
I love this.
I'm glad we did this.
It's carrying to the weekend too, so I hope it just carries over.
This is
Like,
great.
a
Yeah, I want to
Monday
think
press
about this. I
conference.
want to think about this all weekend. I don't want to stop thinking about this till Monday.
Fantastic.
You know?
I don't know how I edit pages after this.
Yeah, you're gonna be worthless today. You're gonna be absolutely worthless.
You get a pass.
Yeah, you're gonna sit there like Craven. You gotta stack it like this tall pages to read. It's like Craven, how many pages you get through? It's like 2 pages.
Still
You know what I mean?
smiling.
Like,
Still smiling.
Pages of what?
yeah.
Pages of tweets?
Pages of tweets. Hundreds of them. Mike Craven and Ishmael Johnson. It's the Republic of Football podcast. You should go subscribe to it on the podcast vendor of your choice.
Yeah, they're about as unorganized conversations as this.
Yeah, so if you like this guy, I think we might throw this. I think we're gonna put this in the Republic of Football feed too. So this will be a bonus episode of that too. Guys, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
How about the next time this happens, we do the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%.
But the thing
I'll
is,
talk about this again at 2.
Y'all want to run it back?
Do this all day. I got nothing to do.
the next time, the next time we have like the problem is the next time this happens, it's not going to be a special. This is like a moment in history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know.
This will be one that you go back in a couple of years and say, "Remember when we did that one podcast?" I'm gonna go listen back to that. After you know how it played out.
It's great.
I listened to Jimbo's podcast or like press conference 3 times.
Injected in my veins.
Like it's like a Kendrick Lamar album. You know what I mean? Like,
Jimbo, the new Jimbo just dropped.
Yeah,
Jimbo just dropped. All right, that's gonna do it for us.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.